Good morning, Laredo College family. There you go. All right, welcome to the 2025 in-service. My name is Ruben Villarreal. I'm the Public Information Officer here at Laredo College, and it's a pleasure to come together with the faculty, staff, administration, and the Board of Trustees to celebrate the beginning of a brand new year. We all represent the best aspects of who we are as a college. I'm hoping everyone had a fantastic break and you're ready to get back to work. Before we do anything, I'm going to ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And gentlemen, please kindly remove your hats. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, individual, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. Well, before we hear from our guest speakers, I just want to introduce one of our distinguished board members. That would be the president of the Board of Trustees, the Honorable Esteban Rangel, joining us this morning. And at this time, please help me welcome the president of Laredo College, Dr. Minita Ramirez.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Does that work? Is that all right? And now I can't see. Welcome back, everybody. It's so exciting to have everyone back. Your smiling faces, your eager eyes to start a new semester. It really is thrilling to be back on campus. I don't know about you all, but I did make it back here a couple of days out of the holidays just because I wanted to make sure we were doing okay. Luckily, we didn't have any major issues over the holidays like we have in the past, thanks to the weather. And today everybody took out their coats, so it was an exciting morning. We're really, really happy that you're here, and I know that we have some people that are out because we do have our offices open, so we'll make sure that they get all the information that we go over today. Normally, I speak to you without notes and try to give you a quick rundown of what's going on. But because so much has happened in the last couple of years, I wanted to make sure that I didn't leave anything out. And so if you'll bear with me for a second, I'm going to read to you some of our, take a few moments to reflect on the tremendous successes of the last couple of years and acknowledge the challenges that we faced and that we've overcome together. Our growth and resilience as a college have been driven by your dedication and your hard work. And for that, I'm grateful and thankful to each and every one of you. Together, we embark on a pivotal year as we implement our new strategic plan, which is designed to focus on our students and uphold our core values of integrity, excellence, innovation, service, and wellness. This plan will guide us through both opportunities and challenges, and we will need to remain united and focused on our mission. As we embark on this new semester, I'd like to highlight some of the key accomplishments and important areas of opportunity for the future. The national discussion about the value of a college degree continues to be of grave concern to me and should be to all of you, because we know that for our community, education is not just a pathway to success, it is the lifeblood that supports our people. Data shows that well over 85% of our students qualify for Pell Grant. And for those who don't, our Palomino Pledge ensures that we cover the last dollar they owe to this college. This promise helps to alleviate the financial burdens and makes higher education not only accessible, but possible for those who need it most. The only requirement for our students is that they be enrolled full-time and maintain good academic standing. And the purpose is so that we complete our students' progress. As we reflect on this college's history and purpose, we understand how interlocked we are to the needs of our community. We all see and acknowledge that our community continues to grow, especially as the nation's #1 port of entry. The demand for skilled and licensed employees is greater than ever. Laredo College is committed to being the provider of these essential skills, training, and certifications. Meeting this demand requires innovative thinking and careful planning, something that we can only achieve through collaboration and open-mindedness. While the road ahead will require significant investment, I'm proud to share that in the last 10 years, Laredo College has not raised tuition. In fact, thanks to our continued support from our generous donors, we have managed to maintain our programming, add new programs, and reduce our tax rates. For 2024, we lowered our tax rate by 2 cents. And for 2025, we will lower them again for an additional 2.5 cents. This commitment to fiscal responsibility comes at a time when the state's budgetary decisions will significantly impact higher education, particularly community colleges like ours. With the passage of House Bill 8 during the 88th legislative session, our focus shifted to outcomes-based funding. The data clearly shows that our enrollment is increasing, retention rates are improving, and graduation rates are at an all-time high. This success has directly contributed to an increase in state funding, and every single one of you has played a role in this achievement. Your efforts, whether in supporting the implementation of the 8-week or the 4-week semesters, or offering open educational resources, providing free meals to full-time students, or increasing on-campus activities, are the driving force behind our success. My sincerest thanks to you for making all of this happen. We couldn't do it without everyone working together. As we continue to improve, it's important to recognize that our students' success is directly tied to their connections and the connections they make on campus. You are the change agents. You are the difference makers and the heart of Laredo College. Your in-person engagement and interaction with our students makes a world of difference in their academic journey. Cognizant of everyone's strong commitment to growth, retention, and completion, our Board of Trustees committed to employee salary increases, which over the last 2 years has been enhanced by a total of 6%. Our thanks to our trustees for their continued support and their continued belief in the work that we're doing. In addition, our facilities are being upgraded to meet the growing needs. I'm pleased to say that the Raquel Gonzalez Transportation Center expansion at the South Campus will be completed this spring. And the Police Academy facility is expected to reopen within the next 60 to 90 days. Roof repairs and water leak fixes in several buildings, including the Safirini Library, have also been completed. And the Camilo Prada Daycare Center received some needed renovations. Here at the Fort McIntosh campus, we've replaced multiple roofs, and we expect the more building renovations to be completed this spring, along with the work being done at the Lamar Bruni Vergara Environmental Center. and the Arechiga building. Roof replacements are also planned for this year for the LIAC, Lerma Peña, Kazan, and Maravillo Gym. Construction on the Veterans Center will begin this spring as well. So as you can see, there's a lot happening on the construction front, which is critical to supporting the growth of our programs. On the academic front, there's so much to be excited about, and I'm proud to announce the approval of 2 new bachelor's degrees and 4 new workforce programs approved by our Board of Trustees in November. A Bachelor's of Applied Technology in Data Analytics, and a Bachelor's of Applied Science in Health, Exercise, and Athletic Rehabilitation Therapy. The goal is to receive final approval by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board this spring and begin offering classes in the fall. We also received $600,000 from the Matias de Llano Charitable Trust to support the startup of our construction management program. And we're seeking funding for programs in forensic and investigative technology, court reporting, plumbing, and power line technician training. That startup for those 4 programs is about $1.7 million. On the operational front, we are in the midst of our SAC COC 5th year review, an important process that ensures we maintain the high standards of quality and accountability required for continued accreditation. This review is a testament to the hard work, dedication, and commitment to excellence by each and every single one of you. And I want to thank you for your ongoing efforts in this important process. Many of you served on committees and have been supporting this process. We're not done yet, but we will be. Right, Dr. Dave? Okay. Additionally, I'm excited to announce that we have successfully completed the rollover to our Banner SaaS cloud-based information system, a significant upgrade that modernizes and streamlines our technology operations. This transition enhances our ability to serve students, faculty, and staff more efficiently and will provide the tools needed to support our expanding needs in the future. These advancements in technology are key to our success as we move forward with our strategic goals. Our success extends beyond the classroom as well. Numerous faculty and staff have received recognition at the state, national, and international levels. Our students continue to excel, with many admitted to top-tier 4-year institutions, many choosing to stay for our own bachelor's degrees and completing their associate's licensures and certificates, graduating with high success and entering exciting careers. One recent highlight is our esports Call of Duty team. By the way, we made national champions again. So congratulations to our students. It's a testament. It's a testament to the diverse talents of our students. Looking forward, we must remain committed to innovation, excellence, and the well-being of our students and yourselves. We are at a critical moment with the upcoming 89th Texas State Legislative Session beginning January the 14th. This session will have a significant impact on the future of higher education, especially for community colleges like ours. We must continue to advocate for policies that support our students and our mission. As we move through this year, I ask that you continue to be innovative, provide excellent service to our students, work with integrity, and prioritize wellness for both our students and you. Together, we will navigate the challenges ahead and continue to make Laredo College a place of opportunity, growth, and success for our community. My most heartfelt thanks to all of you. Let's make this another successful year, committed to excellence, and my sincere congratulations for all of your successes. Que Dios los bendiga. Have a fantastic, fantastic year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramirez. At this time, with a message from the Board of Trustees, please help me welcome Laredo College Board President Esteban Rangel.
Good morning. ¿Cómo están? Well, ya se vino el frío, que es bueno, ¿verdad? It's a good thing. Anyhow, I just wanted to come by and I just wanted to go ahead and welcome everybody back on behalf of the board. I want to thank you for everything that you all do. Please understand that you guys are trailblazers in our community. What we do, what you all do for our community is great things. You know, I work for Laredo Independent School District, and I hear great things about what all of you are doing. So I just want to thank you. I want to welcome all of you back, and I just want to wish you guys a very great, successful 2025. So on behalf of the board, thank you for what you do. Welcome back, and great things on 2025. All right, thank you.
To introduce our next speaker, let us welcome our Vice President of Compliance and Risk Management, Dr. David Ariasola.
Good morning, everybody. It is my distinct honor to introduce today's guest speaker, one of today's guest speakers. Dr. Debbie Gaetan is a distinguished leader in higher education and student success. Dr. Gaetan currently serves as the interim vice chancellor for student success at Alamo College's district, where she has spearheaded district-wide initiatives that enhance enrollment, retention, and completion. Her leadership has been instrumental in driving meaningful change across the higher education landscape in the Alamo Colleges. Previously, Dr. Gaetan has served as the interim president and vice president for student success at Northwest Vista College. During her tenure there, she achieved record enrollments, record graduation rates while advising transformative initiatives such as Alamo Advise and Alamo Promise. Beyond her administrative role, Dr. Gaetan is a sought-after higher education consultant, bringing expertise in strategic planning, enrollment management, and evidence-based programs that close opportunity gaps. Her work focuses on quality enhancement, team development, and organizational improvement, helping institutions reach new heights in student success. Today, we have the privilege of learning from her vast experience. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Debbie Gaetan.
The beginning of your spring 2025 semester. It is so good to be in community with you this morning as we celebrate the exciting time, cold weather, the beginning of spring 2025. And I know with the opportunity that I've had to be here with Laredo College on many occasions now over the last year, this is my 9th time here in Laredo in about a year and 2 months. And this is the first time I've been here needing a coat. So this is going to be an exciting time for us. I was thinking I would make it all the way around an entire. I came first in the fall, then it would have been the fall, the winter, the spring, the summer, and then another fall, and then now winter again. And it's just a beautiful time here. So I've had the opportunity to work with Laredo College. Many of you in this room today, Dr. Manita and her team, on your 2025 to 2030 strategic plan. And I will tell you, it's one of the best highlights of my entire career, and I've had an opportunity to do many wonderful things in my career. I've been very blessed and very privileged. But coming here to Laredo and spending time with your community, getting to know your students, getting to know your faculty and staff and your leaders has been just an honor. So thank y'all for the opportunity to be here to kick off and to launch your 2025 year. It's going to be a great year for Laredo College, and Ray's going to make sure that we get lots and lots of money coming here to Laredo. So we're big fans. I am personally a big fan of HB8. I'm looking forward to some discussion about that. All right, so let's get things started here. So first of all, we are no longer alone in higher education. Gone are the days that if you want to have a formal education, you're going to look for opportunities, primarily in the past of privileged. The way our systems have set up, primarily our privileged citizens were the ones that had the opportunity to go to college. Community colleges came in the 1960s and really revolutionized the opportunity to level the playing field and to give more accessibility to those individuals that did not have the same level of wealth and same level of prestige. You fast forward now as we get into 2025, and we have competition like we have never had in the past, coming from all directions to include things like LinkedIn and YouTube and you name it. Industry is doing their own certifications, et cetera. But it's also an opportunity because it's teaching us and showing us that we have the opportunity to continue to be the trailblazers in education because we are the best in formal education and credentialing. So why not join in, jump in, and look at the competition as opportunities for us to continue to improve. So the things that are primarily happening here in the state of Texas in particular, but most certainly across the nation and the world, is you've got the changing demographics that are taking place in the state of Texas, who has been going to college in the past versus who is going to be going to college in the future. A lot of diversity, a lot of change, every way that we identify diversity, and we look at our students, is on a big, huge transformational cycle at this time. Think about the technological advancement and everything that is happening with technology. And even with the changeover, congratulations on making the change to the cloud. I mean, that's a big, huge lift. Artificial intelligence, mechanization, I mean, you name it, everything is moving to digital, online, fast, and instant. We also are looking at what does it mean to have academic programs that are future ready? What is it that we need to be doing inside the classroom as we're looking at our academic program mix? And not only the academic program mix, but the way in which we approach the teaching and the learning environment. Again, think about LinkedIn, think about YouTube, Coursera, et cetera. What is it that we need to be doing that is teaching our students what they need to know to be ready for the future, while we ourselves are trying to figure out what is the future going to be like. So it's calling us all forward to be thinking about the way in which education will be delivered in a way that's never been delivered before, and our students will be relying on us, and our business and industry partners will rely on us to be able to have the answers to those unknown questions. Evolving student and employer requirements. So what students expect of us. And again, in community colleges, we've always had this sense of burden to try and be everything to everyone. I think it sets us apart and makes us a little unique from universities that kind of have the niche of it's a college-ready student, a little more age traditional, coming right out of high school, going full-time, oftentimes not having to work. And our students in community college are almost the complete opposite of that. And you've got post-traditional students that are coming in that are older students that are parenting, that are working, formerly incarcerated, dual credit. I mean, it's all the different ways in which we look at diversity in higher education. We have that in community college, and even that is changing, rapidly changing. As the face of the United States changes, so does the demographics and the expectations of our students. So our students wanting more online, wanting more accelerated, congratulations on your accelerated terms. So your 4 weeks and your 8 weeks, pushing back on that traditional 16 and 16, and getting more innovative in how and when you offer your classes. Because our students are demanding us to innovate, as well as our employers. And then lastly, we're looking at what's happening with performance-based funding. And I'm excited to be here to be able to hear more about what's happening there. In Alamo, we have gone deep in what it means to understand the House Bill 8, how that has impacted our organization, the great wins that that has created for Alamo as well when it comes to HB 8, and how do we then honor the way in which we have moved primarily from what we would call students in seats to now making sure that those students are reaching their credentials and that they're reaching those credentials that are of high opportunity. So let's take a little bit closer look at each of those. Is there anything on this slide that would surprise any of you in the room when we think about the changing demographics? Some of this, again, for us, is a little bit what we're used to. We're used to having older students and parenting students and evening and weekend students. Now, fully online, that one maybe is changing a little bit more because we had been just traditionally the bricks and mortar. We're in the community that we serve. We want to serve the students that are in and around our footprint here in Laredo. But online learning has become a way. In Alamo, it's primarily women that are older than 36. It's kind of odd, right? Women older than 36 are predominantly the ones that are taking our fully online courses. But think about that. They're probably parenting. They're probably single parenting, probably have transportation issues, probably working a job or two. So fully online has become more and more of a way in which our students are finding access. The lack of economic mobility, congratulations on the pledge, that's a game changer. I can guarantee you that whenever you have a pledge or promise program, that is definitely a game changer in your community. And then looking at, I don't know if y'all have ever run any of the research here in Laredo. In San Antonio, it's staggering when we look at the number of individuals that have they're currently incarcerated or have been formerly incarcerated. And so we're looking at as a population that we want to do more. We want to be more proactive in and around our jail system, and we want to be there to support our justice-impacted students. And I would recommend that y'all do some research on that because I would imagine it's probably the same here. You're going to have primarily men, you're going to have men of color, and extremely overrepresented in the justice system. Then we look at things like high school. My gosh, here in Laredo, is it 50% of your enrollment is dual credit? So that for Laredo College and for the Laredo community is one of the biggest gifts in higher education that you could be doing for this city. The opportunity to be able to deliver higher education while the student is still in high school, and to a certain extent, kind of they have to be there, they don't have a lot of choice, is just amazing. And so I would encourage you to continue to do more of that and look at opportunities to try and get those credentials to them. You would have your high school students graduating with an associate's degree and maybe even crossing the stage at Laredo College commencement before they're even crossing their high school commencement stage. Then with the introduction of your bachelor's degrees, the ones you already have and your new ones, you would have students that would be able, at the age of 20, they're walking away with a bachelor's degree and an associate's degree from Laredo College. I think that's just phenomenal. The technology in and around our classrooms, both with support services and what's happening in the classroom, if you're not already looking at everything and anything that is available to you, you need to. And that's not only what you're delivering to your students, but it is what you are doing for yourself. So when you think about your own professional development and how you're learning to teach in a different way so your students can learn in a different way, and then the way you deliver your services to your students, you need to be embracing all of your opportunities for your advanced technology that you can afford and makes sense to be able to support your students. So think about teaching with technology, learning with technology, supporting students with technology. Again, you've got your OER, so y'all already have that in place. And the more that you can, if you don't already have that to scale, you want to continue to move in that direction because the cost, quite frankly, if you have your pledge program along with your OER, you're pretty much eliminating the vast majority, if not all of the costs that used to be the tuition, the fees, and the books. And so you would want to continue to do that. Support services, there's almost, it's almost unheard of to be doing things manually in support services these days. I know you are. I know that you have to, because sometimes the services are not braided enough for the technologies that you can have it completely 100% automated. But the extent to which you can continue to work to automate your systems and automate your support so that you can free yourselves up to then do more of the qualitative human-to-human interaction, the better. All right, so we're here at the end of 2024, moving into 2025. Some of you may be watching TV shows during that time. Do y'all know what it is when they do the in memoriams, where it's kind of sad? They'll go through the year, like they did the Golden Globes last night, and they'll do all the people that have passed over the years. So it's kind of sad. My husband and I watching the kids go, oh, I didn't know that person passed. So it's kind of sad. So we're going to do a couple of jobs here real quick. How many of y'all know this green one in the corner lit up? Do y'all know what they're doing there? Okay, yeah. So back in the day, right, you go bowling, you actually had people that had to stand the pins up. It was somebody's job to stand pins up. How about this one? Yeah, the movie operators, the projection. So they had an actual reel-to-reel. The movie, those of y'all that are very young in the room, was on this big thing that was called a reel-to-reel. And you had a person that had to actually change those out, depending on how long the movie was. So that job, got to say goodbye to it. How about this one? Yeah, sometimes I wish these jobs still existed, but now you have to pump your own gas, you have to clean your own windshield, you have to check your own, to see whether or not you have fluids and, windshield wiper stuff. But there was a time, again, those of y'all younger, you would pull up to a gas station and somebody would run out and pump gas and clean the window, and it was just pretty phenomenal. Those have gone away. It's all self-serve now. Likewise, what would we do, right, without our phones, without our iPhones? What would our students do? It's hard to even imagine that there was a time, number one, there was a time, if you got to go way back, right, before any of this even existed, but through innovations and through progress, they created phones, and they had these phone operators. Apparently, you would call up a number, operator would answer, they'd connect you to whoever you wanted to talk to. Oh, come on, we can talk to anybody and everybody all over the world now. In a second, we're all over the world communicating. This one here, this one's hard, the photomat one, because I think there's a little nostalgia around that one now, and folks are missing pictures. I know Polaroid apparently last Christmas had one of their best sales years ever because people wanted photos again. But there used to be a time that you didn't have an option. There wasn't a digital photo. You didn't have an iPhone that could take a picture and have it instantly. The Polaroids were probably the closest to something instant that we used to have. So you'd have to go drop off your film, and you'd wait, and you'd wait, and you'd wait, and you'd be so excited when you go back to pick it up, and then half of them were blurred, or your thumb, or something wasn't good with them. But you get those, some of them that it's like, oh God, I can actually see, the faces on those. Now it's digital. How many times have you maybe taken pictures for somebody else now? They're going to do a selfie, and it's like, hey, would you like me to take a picture for you? Sure, sure. And then you take like 10, and you do it this way, and you do it this way, and you do it this way, and you do it this way. And why? Because you can. It's digital. They can look at them immediately. They can delete the pictures they don't want, keep the ones they do. Well, just think. We're used to it. It's common for us. But this was a very, very big innovation. Go back way before any of us, and just what we take advantage of, the lights. Here in and around campus, it will just automatically go on as it gets dark and go off as it gets on. It used to be somebody's job. They had to actually go around and light these things. So you think, okay, those are all in the past, Deb. Forget about it. We're not talking about that. Well, let's come a little bit closer to home. Our libraries, our librarians, part of the big job that they used to do was catalog. And you had to keep the catalogs. And some of you that went to the library had to go to the catalog, and you had to flip through it and try and find the book that you needed. Then you had to walk around the library trying to find the book that you needed, and then only to come to find out somebody had already checked it out, and it wasn't due back. All of that is gone. It's all digitized. Librarians still have a heck of a job, but their job has completely transitioned and transformed. The relevance and the need and the criticality of the work is probably higher than it's ever been because there is now so much to manage. It's a World Wide Web of library cataloging that needs to take place now. So they have to get the digital work, the technologies, the ways in which to find all of that information, help students utilize that information, help students even synthesize and determine what's good and what's not good, what's relevant, what's right. Don't use Wikipedia kind of stuff. But the job completely changed from what it used to be. Imagine if you still went to the library and still had to find student resources this way. How many of you needed the TV and the VCR and it was already checked out? You had your whole lesson plan was set up to be able to pop in some VCR, show something on VCR or even DVD or thumb drive, all the different ways in which that has definitely changed over the years. So yeah, we still have equipment, we still have overheads, we still have PowerPoint, we still have all this technology, but it's not like that anymore. A lot of adapting. The universities, not so much community colleges, you used to have to pack a suitcase to go recruit. So I used to work way back in the day at Laredo Lake University, and we had the Rio Grande Valley and the Coastal Bend and Central Texas, and so I had to live out of my suitcase and out of the trunk of my car to go recruit for that little liberal arts university. It's all digitized. You can recruit from all over the world now at a touch of a button. Somebody actually had to clean erasers and had to actually clean chalkboards back in the day. It was usually student workers, but it was a job nonetheless. It paid. And don't exist. Smart boards, dry erase boards. Everything had to be typed. There were jobs that were specifically typists. Some of y'all may even remember that maybe you had a job at some time in your life where you had to take a typing test just to get the job, whether you typed or not, because it was such a need back then. Well, now it's expected that when we're all entering into the workplace, we're all expected to know how to use, all of our technologies. We're expected to know how to type. Nobody actually taught us how to type. We just grew up with a keyboard in front of us typing. So this job definitely went away. Do any of you in here remember this thing? Yeah, and you used it, right? Like that was the way. Okay, so it was called a slide carousel. I didn't know that before. I had to look to see what it was called. A slide carousel. You couldn't just do this. You couldn't just go out, find an image that's not copyrighted, load it up, and you're ready to go. You had to create a whole, this is like creating a picture, and it's a slide, and it would go in this projector, and you would click it, one picture at a time, and you would do your presentation that way. So it's called a slide carousel. No longer needed. Mailrooms, file clerks, all of that stuff, even though we still have snail mail, there's still ways that we do communicate that way. The vast majority of the way we communicate is electronic and digital. And folks, if you haven't seen the fact that money and the exchange of money is starting to completely disappear. So Google Pay, Apple Pay, credit cards, self-checkout at the grocery store, cashiers, those kinds of things are adapting and changing as well. So when we think about all the changes that are taking place in the digital world and the innovations and the technologies, that's just an example of a few jobs that have gone away or have radically changed over the years. I show those to you because I want you to think about what you do today, what your job is. You're here, the launch of 2025, you're going to go back to your workstation and you're going to get busy with the priorities of the year. I want you to think about what if your job didn't exist in 5 years? What would you be doing? Does it mean it's become obsolete, like the lamplighter? Or is it more like the library cataloger, where your job is not necessarily obsolete, but is completely transformed in a way that digital and technology and all of the advances has allowed you to adapt and adopt a new way in which to do your job. I think it would be real healthy for none of us to think we'll be doing the same thing that we're doing today in 5 years, maybe not even in 2 years, but that you're doing it different and better, and you've transitioned it. Now, if you're really, really, really comfortable, you could be somebody that's really excited about making your job obsolete. Like you want to just say, this isn't needed anymore. What I could be doing is this. And it advances your organization. It gets your students what they need. It gets you kind of out of maybe something that's been done, lamplighting, forever. And maybe there's a switch that can be flipped to do the lamplighting so that you can go do something that is even more innovative and more exciting. So think about how you can be different and change and be the changer. Like don't let society and don't let these like inventions do it. You be the one that's thinking ahead about how your job could be revolutionized and do it different. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the academic program mix, future ready. So look at what's here. We already know, highly digital, global. You're gonna look at the higher education, and just when you hear the word higher education, and you see the two words up on the screen, thank you, English in the United States, H-I-G-H-E-R, sounds the same as H-I-R-E on our ears, higher. Yet in practice, they're two very different words. And I would suggest that they are not. I would suggest that when you think you are in higher education, that you are also in H-I-R-E education. That it is your job and your responsibility in higher education to make sure that you're in higher education, so your students have jobs of opportunity, high wage, high demand, living in vibrant communities here in Laredo, earning family-sustaining wages, because you know that they're the same. And don't throw anything at me, because that word higher, H-I-G-H-E-R, is very, 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 very deep in who we are in colleges and universities. We are lifelong learners, wanting our students to be lifelong learners, engaged in strategic thinking and critical thinking, writing and rhetoric, history, debate, discourse, teamwork, collaboration, all those things that our students are learning in your classes continue to be of top priority as we also think about the credential at the end of that beautiful H-I-G-H-E-R experience, that you feel deeply committed that you are also an H-I-R-E. Okay, so I'm going to call y'all to keep that in mind. It's both. Then we have, again, the students' evolving needs, our employers' evolving needs. Think acceleration, think fast. Think about, as we're trying to bring rich education to our students, that at the same time our employers need that, and they need the ready-to-work employee as well. So as fast as you can get your students into those high-demand, high-wage jobs of opportunity, the better. On the student support side, you know, there's always been this debate. I know everywhere I've been, our students are not customers. Do y'all go through that here also? The student is not a customer? How many of y'all have heard that? Student's not a customer. Yeah. How about the student is a customer? Okay, so a little bit of hesitation. I would imagine that you've probably, if you're in higher education, you've heard that a little bit, and you're going to hear it both ways. They are a customer, they're not a customer, they are a customer. Well, we can all agree they are a student, so there's never a debate on whether or not a student is a student. The question would be, how would the student answer the question? Would the student say, I'm not your customer. I just pay you a lot and spend a lot of time in your store, classroom, admissions office, advising. But don't think of me as a customer, though. Now, whether they use those words or not, they're gonna expect to be taken care of the way we expect to be taken care of whenever we go places and engage in an exchange of business with that store, that location. So our students want fast, easy to navigate, accessible information, reliable information from individuals that are kind and compassionate and knowledgeable, which is exactly what we would want if we were seeking support in a college or university as well. I want us to also think about this when we think about our students. And Dr. Ramirez, I mean, everything that you said is, you could be in Alamo welcoming any of the colleges for Spring 25. So spot on in where we are as an organization, where we are in higher education. Then when you think about Laredo, and you think about the community here in Laredo, I just really appreciated it. because there was everything that you said. By the way, I'm a guest following along. I would have been standing and clapping probably if I was back in my old Northwest Vista home, like, yeah, preach it, preach it. So I want to use a little bit of what you were talking about for this idea of a scratch line. So a scratch line, as you can see, it's the starting line in a race. Any of you former track runners? Anybody in the room? Okay, so nobody ran track here? Okay, so you've been out of did you have to go out of a starting block? Okay, so out of a starting block is usually when the scratch line is going to be most important, because if you're running cross country or if you're running the mile, even probably like the 800, like the 2 laps, you're usually not down on a scratch line. But anything where you start to get like into the 1 lap, the 400, or the 200, half a lap, and most certainly your races, your hundreds, et cetera, you're going to be on what's called a scratch line. Here in higher education, we will be starting classes. Are y'all after Martin Luther King? Yeah, so the Tuesday after Martin Luther King holiday, which is a day on, you start classes. That's your scratch line. Then you have your finish line. So you've got a 4-week, you've got an 8-week, you've got a 16-week, et cetera. You're going to have your finish line, the last day of classes. We need to understand, and I think you do here, but I want to just drive it home just a little bit more, that our students have a class start date scratch line. However, that is not their am I ready for that class start date scratch line. Am I prepared for that first day of class scratch line? Have I figured out how to get to that first day of class scratch line? Do I have my childcare squared away scratch line? Have I figured out how to pay? So you kind of get it, right? So there's a scratch line of this is when we all began, and there's a scratch line of where your students are as that first day of classes began. Are we going to hold them responsible for being ready for the first day of classes equally? Or are we going to understand and really, truly be the ones that adapt to the actual start line of each and every one of our students? That means having to know them. It means having to understand what they're dealing with. It means having to look at your curriculum. It means having to have resources and supports in place, tutoring, supplemental instruction, et cetera, et cetera. But I always want us to always come back to the fact that as we hold our students responsible for that last day of class and the grade that they get, what can we be doing to help them all get to the finish line more equitably? It's our field. It's our track. Nobody built the track for us. It's ours. Then we come to performance-based, which is just incredible. Outcomes-based has been something that I would say, as a leader in Alamo for many, many years, I've been waiting for what we used to call, right, remember the momentum funding? We were waiting for momentum funding 10, 15 years ago, where you do these things, we would call them, get them through the developmental ed, get students through their first college level math, first college level English, gateway courses, get students to the first 15 hours, 30 hours, 45 hours, get them to the credential, get them to the degree. All of those things were considered your momentum points, but we were getting very little financial incentive to do that good work. So it is definitely about getting students in to start the journey, but we had always been working towards keeping our students in and helping them incrementally reach these momentum points that we know then lead to the credential and the degree. So we were super excited when the state of Texas said, that's the way we want to fund more formally. And again, we were anticipating it happening for a long time. We're just glad that we finally got here. So credentials of value, that's a term. And I apologize because my preference is credentials of opportunity, because all of our credentials are of high value, without exception. They're game changers. It creates socioeconomic mobility, the lifeblood, right? The lifeblood of our community are the credentials that this institution awards to students in total, without exception. Where we have, it's kind of a yes, and what the state has done is said, and there are certain credentials that are highly needed in the state of Texas. There's a deficit in the state of Texas, and they're watching the future. They're seeing where technology is going. They're seeing where health-related needs are going. The lack of nurses is an example. But all of the IT, there's just these areas where there's some predictive analytics that have been put in place to say those particular credentials will have added financial support. Because number one, they're more expensive programs, equipment, technology, et cetera, and then they're high need. You've got your transfer to the four-year institutions, dual credit, such an amazing opportunity with dual credit. Do y'all charge dual credit, or so you're part of the FAST program, so you have an opportunity then to be able to deliver dual credit at no cost to your students and receive some financial incentive for that. You look at the 25 and over, probably quite a bit of the population already. I know it is in Alamo. Our students that are developmental education and academically and economically under-resourced. We have an opportunity to receive additional funds from the state. We'll hear a whole lot more about that soon. I hope I didn't mess any of that up. So where are we today? You have the opportunity to take all of these things that are happening in higher education that we've just gone over. In particular, the demographics of our students changing, their requirements changing, and the influence that we have from artificial intelligence and technologies and mechanization, and then most certainly the opportunities we have with our funding and our performance-based funding. So what is it that positions Laredo College to be the best, right? There's a pie in the state of Texas. I know Alamo would be saying, man, we want a big piece of that HB8 pie, because then we bring that money back into the organization, the colleges, to be able to do even more for our students. We'd want the same thing for Laredo. We want Laredo going after the financial incentives, because that money goes right back to your students and also allows for you to have the things that you need to be, again, technologically advanced and prepared for your future. But what is it that makes you unique? What is it about Laredo that nobody else has? And those are things that would be great conversation for y'all to continue to have as you're looking at your strategic plan and you're looking at where you want to be in 2025. Capitalize on what nobody else can do. Everybody's going to say it's great faculty, quality instruction, caring and knowledgeable staff, beautiful campus, safe, affordable. And most community colleges are going to claim those same things in varying ways. But there's some things about Laredo that nobody else has. There's some things about this college nobody can replicate. You just need to know the answer to that. And then how will you, not Manitha, not the leadership team, not the students, but how will you, as an individual contributing to this work, make the changes and adjustments that you need to make to ensure that we're better in the future? And anybody that feels like, I'm good, everybody tells me I'm good, like I'm actually kind of the best at what I do, I think that's fabulous. But then now it's on yourself to say, can never be done. I always got to be baking, always got to be cooking, always got to be looking for ways for me to be better at what I do. It's continuous personal and professional development is required, I think, in higher education of everybody. And then what systems will you have in place to ensure that you're ready for the future? Because it's not just going to happen, right? I mean, you're not just going to magically wake up 5 years from now and you have advanced into this technology future and you have to work on it, right? You have to work on it and you have to make it part of your system. It has to be systemic. This is what Laredo College does. The actions that we take to prepare us, and not only to be ready for the future, but to be leading in the future. So I'm going to share a couple of high-level on your strategic plan. By the way, congratulations to the work that has been taking place to be able to launch your strategic plan. And you have the 2025 to 2030. These are your main components of your strategic plan. And I will tell you, you are positioned for the future. Your strategic plan gives you the foundation and the details within the actions that are being developed to be right where you need to be and to be ahead of where many of us are anticipating the state is going to be, and most certainly where education is going to be. So your instruction and student achievement, your high-value, high-opportunity programs, your program mix that is then being offered again the way the students need it, with high level of diversity to meet the needs of your students, so online, flex, accelerated, affordable, accessible, OER, all the things that you have already that are in place, you need to look at all of that as it's baked into your student achievement, getting your students to the finish line. The support services, boy, HBA probably more than ever before. We've always known that it's always going to be the partnership of everybody's roles, all contributing to the success of students. They're only going to be as successful as everybody being able to be a part of the bigger puzzle and the braiding of our work. Things like advising, career, advocacy. I mean, I hate to name a few because it's hard because it's everything. But just to kind of have you thinking, need to be robust, need to be intrusive, need to really be able to meet the needs of our students to keep them in the classroom with that quality instruction, with the talented faculty, being supported, what you can call your wraparound support of the things that are happening outside of the classroom that sometimes get in the way of them being successful in the classroom. It's important to have a safe environment where everybody feels like they can not just survive here at Laredo College, but can thrive, excited to come here, and feel safe about being here. And communication and technology, folks, if you haven't seen that already, it's just constantly changing. It's too much information. It's not enough information. I wish I could get my information this way, but no, I prefer it to be this way. So continuing to have conversations about how to know, and when to know, and what to know, so that it just feels right, that you feel like you're informed, but you're not overwhelmed. And the way in which we do that is through good technology and through good communication. Our students are the same way. We call it that just-in-time information for them to do what they need to do and to do it well. So in order to keep your strategic plan, we were talking earlier, right, about it's not static, where you do it once every 5 years, you create a plan, you check a box, and you put it away, and it just gets dusty and cobwebs. You have to keep it alive and dynamic. And how do you do that? So you do that through regular evaluation. And y'all already do this, by the way, using like the SMART goals, just as one example that everybody's aware of, where they're measurable and they're appropriate, they're repeatable, et cetera. But you want them to be done in a way that it is public, that you're not doing strategic planning work in secrecy. You want it to be transparent, you want it to be shared, and you need to be engaged in the work. The only way you can deliver on the bold promises that have been made on your strategic plan is for everybody to be accountable to the plan. It's for everybody to know the plan and to know your part in the plan. So I'm going to give you all a couple of ways that we can do that. Have any of you heard of 4 disciplines of execution? Okay, or it's referred to sometimes in industry as 4DX. Okay, so first of all, I apologize that I'm going to talk with y'all about 4DX because I have a love-hate relationship with this thing. And if I wanted to be a not-so-good colleague, I would never talk with you about 4DX because it is a thing, and it's a big thing. But as a good colleague and somebody that wants you to keep your strategic plan alive and dynamic, I have to talk with you about it because it is one of the best things. I'm over 35 years in higher education, and this is one of the best things that I have ever seen and have ever been a part of, but it's also creates what we call a cadence of accountability. And when you have a cadence of accountability, then that's it. You have a cadence of accountability. and you can't walk away from it. And that's the part where it's like, there's times where, I have to go and give a WIG report, a wildly important report, and it's like, I wish we weren't doing this thing, but gosh, I'm glad we're doing this thing because we got that thing done. And I don't know if we would have gotten it done if it wasn't for 40X. So let's talk a little bit about this. And I'm gonna get real specific on this piece with y'all. So number one, it is creating what's called a whirlwind. Your regular day, any day of the week, can be considered a whirlwind. That's the terminology that they use, which just means we're busy. We have a lot going on. Our plates are full. We always feel like we have more to do than the time to do it, so we call it a whirlwind. What you do is you think about your whirlwind, you think about your strategic plan and your world within the strategic plan, your role, and you're gonna take something out of the whirlwind. You're gonna literally say, this thing right here, we're gonna work on it. This is wildly important that we get this done. So we're gonna take it out of the whirlwind, because if it stays in the whirlwind, it just won't get done. So number one, you figure out what is that thing you're gonna work on. Number two, you want to act on lead measures. Just for real quick, does anybody want to share an example of a lag measure? A lag measure that Laredo College uses. What would one example be? Not the number, but just the definition of a lag measure. Anybody? How about degree completion? Retention, persistence, PGR, enrollment. All of our main key performance indicators, so all the way from enrollment to completion to everything in between, most of those are going to be lag measures. It's just what you got. You measured it at the end of the cycle, at the end of the work. How many students enrolled? How many students completed? What was their PGR? What was the retention? What was their success, et cetera, satisfaction, all of those kinds of things. So most of what we do to measure our work is lag. So what 4 disciplines of execution, 40X teaches us is, you're gonna have a lag, but you gotta be doing something right now that you're also measuring that's going to lead to your lag. It's your lead action and your lead measure in hopes to impact that lag. Versus, we're gonna increase something and I hope somebody does something about it. I hope that team over there gets busy because I think that one belongs to them. This creates more of an accountability to all of us. You have to keep a compelling scoreboard. The one I'm gonna show you in a minute is not very compelling. It's pretty straightforward. But we've done all kinds of fun stuff. Mario Brothers, when Barbie came out, Barbie, I'm sure in the spring there'll be gladiators. I mean, there's just all kinds of scoreboards that people will keep. You'll understand a little bit more when I show you one. And it's public. People can see it. And then you're gonna create a cadence of accountability by doing this work in teams. And it's usually the most natural team that you're affiliated with. So you just think about your work team, and you'll have dozens and dozens of teams represented in this room. All right, so this one doesn't have anything fancy, no Mario Kart, no Barbie, but I'm gonna walk you through it, and I'm using your data. So first, it's the 4 disciplines of execution, and you wanna think that you are trying to get from one data point, which is your X data point, to your Y data point. When you look at the WIG that I decided to pull, I pulled this right off of the strategic plan, right off of the work that was taking place in the development of the strategic plan. One of the teams had looked at the data, and engagement, right? Engagement is one of the big things that y'all would be focused on because we know that student engagement leads to higher retention, persistence, et cetera. So on the Community College Survey of Student Engagement, Laredo College's most recent survey, 20% of your students said they participated in at least one Laredo College sponsored event. So the team said, let's work on that. It's important for students to be engaged. And they decided they wanted it to be at 35% of Laredo College students would say they've participated in at least one Laredo College sponsored event. It didn't have the date on it, and the date is your by when. So we want to be from 20% X to 35% Y by, and for the sake of this, I'm going to say December 2025. We'll just kind of, usually what you would want to do is have your by about 15 to 16 weeks later. And the reason why it's only 15 to 6 weeks later, number one, you can do it in a full semester. And number two, the research tells us through the 40X work that 16 weeks of consistently hitting your goal creates a habit. So it's not 16 weeks of doing something and not hitting a goal. It's 16 consecutive weeks of being successful at doing what you as a team have committed to do. It's now a habit. You can put it back in the whirlwind. Because now it's going to be in the whirlwind with different behavior associated with it. So you're going to continue to get results. And guess what? You go pick another thing. You grab something else out of the whirlwind and start working on it. So let's walk through this. X 20%, you're going to get to 35%. Those ticks represent 15 weeks. And it doesn't mean in 15 weeks you're going to get to 35, because for this one we've set it up for December. So you actually have, all of spring, all of summer, all of fall. So you could either keep working on this or you can do something a little bit different. But for at least 15 weeks, you're going to try and create a habit. And I'm going to use, do we have any faculty here today? Okay, show of hands. Faculty. Let's see your hands. I know the light's a little bit hard for me. Okay, so I don't know which discipline you have. I'm going to pick biology. And I'm going to say it's 5 biology faculty. They see that as one of the action plans. By the way, I'll answer this question myself. I would say if I saw that action of going from 20% to 35% students being engaged in a Laredo College sponsored event, I would say good luck, student life. I hope that goes well for you. And I'd kind of go on about my other business. And I want to show you that it's not student life. In a cadence of accountability, we're all accountable. We're all accountable. We're all contributing in some way or another to our strategic plan. Faculty can find themselves right here really well. So let's say it's 5 faculty, but say, you know what, we're going to pick up that one. We can kind of see ourselves in this one. Laredo has some great events out there. I'm going to do something with 4 of my colleagues, and we're going to get a cadence of accountability going. We're going to adopt that as our WIG. We're going to do our part. We're each going to talk to 5 students a week. Many of y'all are going to have your 5 classes, so maybe it's 1 student per class. And you're going to talk to 1 student per class or 5 students per week for your 15 weeks about an event. Now, what's even more exciting is you can do a WIG in partnership with Student Life or in partnership with other faculty. You can bring a speaker in, you can do all kinds of things and say, well, let's do it during class, because good luck trying to get our students to events if it's not tied to class. You can get creative, it can be your event, it can be somebody else's event, but you've made the decision and the commitment that you're going to talk to students about the events. And you're going to do that 15 weeks. 5 faculty, just 5 faculty, being consistent, which is your yellow line, 25 students a week, would be 375 conversations that the faculty have had with a different student. On this example, the faculty exceeded, because there were some weeks where they spoke to more than 5 students. Faculty might say, well, gosh, that's really hard. How about if I just spoke to my entire class? That's 25 students right there. Speak to your entire class. Set up a different way. But the cadence of accountability doesn't mean I'm going to speak to my class one time and I'm done. What are you going to do the other 14 weeks? It's 15 to 16 weeks of doing something consistently. So if you're going to talk to 25 students in your first class, then maybe you're going to talk to all 25 in your 5 classes, 6 classes, 7 if you've got overloads. But then what are you going to do to follow up? What are you going to do to keep talking with students and making sure that it's not a one and done. So, cadence of accountability, it's a team effort. You have to be accountable to someone. That's what creates the cadence. If you don't do your part, the team feels it. If somebody on any of these weeks did not do their part, it would be a red bar, and it would be below the yellow line. For this particular one, it could be Barbie didn't get her dream house, whatever you want it to be. Something happened that the team did not meet their goal for that week. You keep on going. If you don't meet your goal consistently over 2 to 3 weeks, you start counting your weeks again. You start at week 1 again because you're not getting anywhere towards a habit, behaviors haven't changed, and accountability has not set in. Okay, we're going to come back. I would love for y'all to have questions about this whenever we do a little bit of a Q&A in a little while. So I'm going to back up here again. 4 disciplines of execution, X to Y by. An example of how you get from X to Y by. This is a leading indicator. By the way, you don't know if this is going to get us to 35%, right? We have no idea because it's not the lag data. This is going to get you to 375 students that have been talked to about the importance of being engaged on campus, online. How are the programs being developed? They spoke to 430. That's 5 people. What happens if it's 10 people? What happens if 15 people decide to do something like this? Now you have some things to say, well, we did something that we measured that might have an impact on that 35%, while other team members might be doing something completely different. Because what's exciting about this is the teams get to decide what they want to do to try and have a positive impact on that 35%. And you get to work as a team and share the victories. Some team members, just so you know, some teams like at Northwest Vista, where I worked forever, we had team members that put the team members' names. So it wasn't a week 1, 25. It was a week 1 with however many people were contributing to that, and each person had a bar. That's how accountable it became. Well, I got mine done. Debbie didn't, and we're on her about it. And Debbie's going, sorry, I'm gonna get better. I mean, they really took this to heart. Okay, so you've got a cadence of accountability through your 4DX. Process improvement, this would be your process improvement. You find an opportunity, organize around it, clarify, understand, and select something to improve. In this case, improving student engagement. You can put these together very easily. This process may have even led to something like we need more students engaged. We need to look at our processes, we need to look at our practices, we need to plan something, do something different, we need to execute that plan, we need to check to see if we're getting the results that we need to get, and if we are getting the results, kick the cycle back off again. So when you're thinking about planning and improving, think, plan, do, check, act. Always remember that this is not an obstacle. Change is an opportunity. It's a privilege for us to be in an organization like Laredo College, and what Dr. Ramirez has here is the expectation of change, the expectation of excellence, the expectation of being better. And it's not always big, sweeping change. You don't have to completely dismantle before you rebuild. Some things do. There are some systemic things that do need to be dismantled in higher education. But a lot of the work is also just the tweaking and the renovating, and it's, some of the rooms that need a little touch up. And it's kind of like pivoting in the sport of soccer. So when a player learns to completely open up, basically it is just opening your hips as wide as your hips can go, and you pivot. If you were the court, and I'm on the field, I played volleyball, sorry, and you open up to the field, the further you can pivot, it's like your peripheral, the further you exercise your pivot, the more of the field you see, the more opportunity you see. Opportunities that you wouldn't have seen if I only looked at this part of the field. But as I continue to open up and I look at ways in which to do things different, the art of the pivot becomes extremely important. So think about the action plans and the strategies that you're working on. Are you dismantling something and rebuilding new? Or are you just pivoting and creating more opportunities for the work? So we just finished up the new year. And in closing, I thought, why not come back to All Lang Syne? When we think about, how many of y'all heard this song just a couple of weeks ago, right? I mean, you walk in the mall, you turn on the TV, all the different shows have All Lang Syne. And as y'all would know, I have some of the words up there, just as a reminder for some of y'all that might not be as familiar with it. But it's a call to the past, and it's a call to the remembering of our past. It's like the good old days and the days gone by, while we lift a cup to the things that come, to our future. So I believe when we think about the transformational change that we're in right now, it's not to disregard our beautiful past. It is not to also disregard the beautiful things that we have done in education in our past. It is very much, it feels good sometimes to just reminisce and think about where we've been and what we've been able to do and be for this country that we live in. Imagine where we would be without community colleges. And it's beautiful and it's worthy of celebrating and raising our glass for the future. Raising our glass to create a more just future. Because we're not just where we need to be right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Debbie Gaitan, for your thought-provoking and inspiring message. Thank you for being with us here this morning. On behalf of Laredo College, we do have a gift that we want to present to you.
No, don't open it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Dr. Gaitan, please. You know, there's a lot going on here, as we mentioned earlier, and there's the significance of change and making sure we look back to where we've been and now where we're headed. And there are a lot of changes coming down from Austin and within our legislative session, and some of the things that we can look forward to help us continue to grow and develop, and how we're going to get there financially. And so our speakers today are intended to help you, one, not only think about where we've been, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and where we're going, but also to understand what it means. And what it means to you as a professional, and what it means to our students, and what it means to the growth of our college. And our next speaker is probably also, and Dr. Gaitan, we thank you for all the support you gave us in developing our new strategic plan. Everybody has gotten copies of it. Everybody understands where we're headed with that. But how is that strategic plan going to get us to the next level? And how are we going to meet the needs and demands not only of our students and community, but also of our state government? And so our next speaker is probably one of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life. And it's a great pleasure to introduce to you today someone who has had a profound impact on higher education in Texas and beyond. Dr. Ray Martinez is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Texas Association of Community Colleges. And I've had the privilege of knowing Dr. Martinez for many years, and I can tell you from personal experience that he's not only an extraordinary leader, but also a deeply thoughtful and compassionate individual who truly understands people and community. His credentials are nothing short of impressive, and his dedication to serving the people of Texas is evident in every aspect of his career. Dr. Martinez's journey in education and public service is nothing short of remarkable. Before his role at TAC, he served as the Deputy Commissioner for the Deputy Commissioner of Academic Affairs and Workforce Education at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, leading the efforts in academic programs, workforce training, and post-secondary success. His expertise has been invaluable in shaping the policies that support the success of our community colleges across the state. What's truly special about Dr. Martinez is his ability to bridge the world of policy with the real-world needs of our students and our communities. Whether as president of the Independent Colleges and Universities of Texas or as chancellor of Western Governors University, Texas, Dr. Ray Martinez has always brought a keen understanding of the educational landscape in everything he does. His leadership in both higher education and workforce development has made a lasting impact, not just in Texas, but across the nation. His impressive career has also included significant contributions in federal service, including serving the Clinton administration and the George W. Bush administration, where he was confirmed by the U.S. Senate to serve on the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission. His commitment to public service and education has extended well beyond the borders of Texas. Through all of his accomplishments, Dr. Martinez remains grounded in his values. As a native of Alice, Texas, and a graduate of Southwestern University and the University of Houston Law Center, Ray has never forgotten the importance of community. His academic journey has continued with postgraduate studies at Harvard, further underscoring his dedication to learning and growth. Dr. Martinez's leadership at TAC is rooted in his deep understanding for the challenges and opportunities facing community colleges in Texas, and he has been a tireless advocate for expanding access to high-quality, affordable education for all Texans. Above all, Ray is a man of integrity, vision, and compassion, and it's an honor to have him with us today to share his insights on the future of higher education in Texas. And it's truly an honor for me to call him my friend. So please help me welcome Dr. Ray Martinez.
Let me reflect on a couple of things that, as I've sat here this morning, had the privilege to be here with you all. Let me reflect on a couple of things that I've heard. Before I do that, Dr. Ramirez Menita, thank you for the very generous introduction. You are a dear friend, and that's, to me, the most important aspect of our relationship is that you're just a friend that I call upon and have for more than a decade, because we first met when I was working at the state capitol, and you were with Texas A&M International. I've seen Dr. Ramirez in various capacities in her both professional and personal aspects or personas, and I admire her greatly. We have worked the halls of the state capitol together on many occasions when she was wearing a previous hat with Texas A&M International University, and I was a staff member at the state capitol. I've seen her be so effective with folks at the state capitol, both staff members and elected officials, because she doesn't distinguish between the two. She treats everybody with great respect and with genuine friendship. But I've also, of course, seen her in a professional capacity, because in my bio, one of the things that she didn't mention is that I actually worked for Texas A&M System Office for the 2013 legislative session, and I had the privilege of actually working very closely with Texas A&M International University, and that's when Dr. Ramirez and I got to know each other even better beyond the work that we had done at the state capitol together. So I've seen Dr. Ramirez on a campus as a leader, as she is doing here at Laredo College, And I just cannot say enough how much I respect you and how much I appreciate your friendship, Dr. Remedios. Maybe a round of applause for President Remedios, please. Okay, I think we're up and running here. A couple of reflections then from what I've heard. Dr. Gaitán, thank you for the great presentation and for putting pressure on me to bring money home, by the way. So we'll see if we can carry that out during this legislative session. A couple of quick reflections then from what I heard as I was sitting here, and I'll jump into my presentation and go through. And I hope, I know it's a kind of a quiet crowd and maybe it's early in the morning, but if this is an opportunity for you as staff members, also for faculty members, and I address faculty members on a frequent occasion, and usually when I'm in front of faculty for community colleges, there's a lot of questions and a lot of comments about House Bill 8. So I will just encourage you that as I go through this presentation, I will leave time at the end if there's anybody that does want to jump in with any questions or comments once we go through the slide deck. But a couple of comments or reflections. Dr. Gaitán ended her very impressive presentation by talking about transformational change and the importance of transformational change. And I sat there thinking about the privilege that I have as president and CEO of the Texas Association of Community Colleges. What I do frequently, I won't do it for the next 5 months because once the session kicks off next Tuesday, I'm pretty much parked in Austin, spending time at the state capitol during the 5 months of the legislative session. But when we're not in a legislative session, what I most enjoy doing is this. I have visited, I think the last count by the staff at the association was something like 26 of our 50 community college districts in the past 12 months alone. And it's usually to go and do things like this, either a presentation like an in-service, or often a smaller group, usually the cabinet of a community college president or chancellor. And we go through this similar slide deck and we take a deeper dive. What is HB 8 all about? What are the details that perhaps need better understanding? Why in 2023 did the legislature decide to fundamentally change how we fund our 50 community college districts across the state? So we go through questions like that. But Dr. Gaitán mentioned transformational change, and I have to say, not everybody is changing or sort of responding to the message of transformational change across the state the same. We have 50 community college districts. I'm privileged to work for 48 who are dues-paying members. I'm going to talk about our association in a second, but really we work with all 50 community college districts, including the 2 that don't formally pay dues to our association, because I've known their CEOs for many years and we still coordinate with them very closely. And what I can tell you is that you all are among the leaders in the pack. And I don't say that just because it's true. It's true, Dr. Ramirez. I don't say that just because I'm sitting here or because I'm here with you all today. And that's not to reflect negatively upon any of our other 49 community college districts. Everybody has been embracing and supporting the change that HB 8 has brought to a performance-based funding model. But not all 50 community college districts are responding in the same way and performing in the same way. And I can tell you without any hesitation, Laredo College is among the leaders in the entire state for how you are responding to House Bill 8, which means how you are responding to your students, to improving student success. And on top of that, I didn't realize this until I came. I think Dr. Ramirez had mentioned that was part of what you all were doing. But to be implementing a new strategic plan at this time in response to this change, and among other things, in response to this change in performance funding, in the funding model, is truly a step ahead of your colleagues across the state of Texas. So I applaud you, Dr. Ramirez, for that. The second observation that I had while I was sitting here, and this one comes from Minita's opening comments, which again I thought were very insightful. But her opening comments, she talked about the value, the perception of the value of a higher education credential. And she mentioned that it's something that we all need to be concerned about, both as faculty members, as staff members, as community college leaders, as administrators. And I want to take a quick, deeper dive into that, Dr. Ramirez. For those of you who don't know, in July of this past year, there was a poll that was released, and it was conducted by the Gallup Association and by Lumina, which is a very influential higher education foundation based in Indiana. And they've been doing a poll of Americans across the country every year for the past 10 years. And the main question that they're asking is, what is your perception of the value of a college credential? Is it valuable? Is it worth the time to go and achieve a credential? The data came out in July for the very latest numbers in terms of Americans' perception of the value of a higher education degree or credential. And what they showed in July was that about 31% of 2,000 Americans that were surveyed, 31% had no confidence whatsoever, none, in the value of a higher education credential. None. About 33% said, yeah, there's some value in it, and the final third said, very valuable. So 1/3 of our fellow Americans feel like there is no value whatsoever, nothing, in achieving a college degree or a college credential. That's alarming. What's even more alarming is that if you look back to their first survey 10 years ago, in 2015, what you'll find is that 15% of Americans, just 10 years ago, 15% said no value whatsoever in a college degree or credential. That number has doubled in the last 10 years alone, from 15% now to 31% of Americans who said no value whatsoever. I like to take a deeper dive into poll data like that. I took a look at the 31% of Americans who said no value whatsoever. What's the reason? What is the reason that they said that? And there were three things that stood out. Number one, higher education is too political. Okay. Number two, higher education does not teach the right skills to get a good job. And number three, higher education is too expensive. It is not affordable. Those are the three reasons given by the 31% of Americans who just in this past July survey said they have no confidence whatsoever in any value being attached to a college degree or a college credential. Now, it's too political piece of it, we're not going to deal with that with a piece of legislation. That's going to take a lot more work on all of our parts to deal with colleges too political. One way or the other, left or right, whatever it is, that's not going to be solved with a piece of legislation. But teaching the right skill sets and addressing affordability, that actually can be addressed by public policy. That can be addressed by decisions made by our Texas legislature or by our U.S. Congress at the national level. And I'm going to jump into my presentation now, but I want to start by leaving you with this thought. House Bill 8 does just that. House Bill 8 is legislation that is focused on ensuring that we have the resources necessary as colleges to be able to teach the right skill set, and HB8 also in many different ways, and we can jump into how it does it, but in many different ways focuses upon affordability of higher education. One way that stands out is the creation, I think it was in one of Dr. Gaitan's slides, was the creation of a new financial aid program for dual credit students, of which Laredo College, I think, is one of the early participants, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Dominguez. All right, so we're going to jump into a slide deck here. All right, a little bit about our association then. First of all, thank you to Laredo College. I think your board chair was here earlier, Mr. Rangel, for your participation in our association. As I mentioned earlier, the Texas Association of Community Colleges is 48 dues-paying members. We have 50 community college districts in the state of Texas. 48 are dues-paying members of our association. 2 colleges are not, Collin College in the Plano, North Texas area, and Lone Star College in the Houston area are not dues-paying members, but their CEOs, Dr. Neil Matkin at Collin College, Chancellor Mario Castillo at Lone Star College. Lone Star Colleges are good friends people that I've known for years and people that we still coordinate with, particularly when it comes to legislative strategy. We all want to be on the same page, all 50, when it comes to things like HB 8 last legislative session. So 48 dues-paying members, but we really do coordinate with all 50 of our community college districts across the state. We are an association that facilitates communication among the various community colleges. We provide research and development. We are a staff of about 16 full-time employees, some of whom work on advocacy and legislative issues, as we're about to start doing next week. And the other part of the staff is the Texas Success Center. Some of you may work with the Texas Success Center. A lot of research and a lot of support for student success coaches, academic advisors, faculty members to ensure that our students stay on a guided pathway, that our students who enroll have a vision for how they're going to complete a degree or a credential. So those are the things broadly that we do as an association. And as I just mentioned, we are 3 components for our association. TAC itself is sort of the mothership of the other 2 components, which is our Success Center, which I just mentioned, that we work on guided pathway strategies with our colleges. And then we also encompass the Community College Association of Texas Trustees. So each of our 50 community college districts in Texas are governed, of course, like Laredo College, by elected trustees, some of whom call themselves regents. We work with all of those elected officials as well through this association that's part of TAC. So that's a little bit about our association. What about higher education generally here in the state? This is data that you probably are familiar with already, but this is from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. Every October, the coordinating board releases preliminary enrollment data for the fall semester. And what we saw in October, just a couple of months ago from the coordinating board, stands out here. Community colleges, the 50 community college districts in Texas now comprise the sector of higher education here in Texas with the most enrollment. We actually had fallen behind the public four-year universities here in Texas in terms of overall enrollment during the height of the COVID years. That enrollment has now trickled back up. We have a long way to go to get all of the folks that had to stop out during COVID to see if we can get them back into higher education for a credential, but we're making tremendous progress at our 50 community college districts across Texas. And as you can see here now, the total enrollment for credit-bearing courses across our sector is just over 700,000 students that are enrolled in our 50 community college districts. That was an increase of 5.4% from the previous academic year. And then you can see here how it compares to other sectors. Our public universities were up in enrollment by about 2.2%. Overall, I think the state saw on the right-hand side, I think we have some things that stand out there, that we saw a 3.4% increase in higher education enrollment for the fall of 2024 compared to the previous academic year. So that's where things stand in terms of enrollment. What we hear anecdotally, as I said, I have the privilege of moving across the state, visiting different campuses. We're hearing a lot of positive momentum about enrollment across all of our 50 community college districts, and that's really good news for our colleges, particularly under our new funding model, which we're going to talk about here in a second. All right, so we think about, I think also in Dr. Gaitán's presentation, certainly in Dr. Ramirez's comments, we think about sort of this continuum in higher education that we've all now been working on for many years. And for me, about the last 20 years of my career have been dedicated here in Texas to various aspects of higher education policy. But we've gone from a state strategic plan that was called Closing the Gaps, which was adopted back in the year 2000 by the state of Texas. It ended in 2015, and Closing the Gaps was really focused on access to higher education. Some of you probably remember Closing the Gaps and worked on various aspects of implementing this policy. Our concern in 2000 was the doors are not wide enough not opened wide enough, particularly for students of color, particularly for Hispanic students, African American students in particular. There was a lot of effort that was done between 2000 and 2015, and a lot of success that we saw in opening the doors of access to higher education. We transitioned then in 2015 to 60 by 30 TX. Our focus became not just access to higher education, but persistence and success, rightly so. It's that continuum. We want to open the doors and get people into higher education, but now we need to focus on the scaffolding, the framework that needs to be put in place to ensure that students can actually make it through higher education with a credential, either a workforce education credential or a degree at the end of that time period. So that's what 60 by 30 TX was focused upon. It was adopted by the state legislature in 2015 as our state strategic plan, and it was modified in 2021. And it became Building a Talent-Strong Texas. And it's another iteration of this higher education continuum. Access, persistence and success, and now ensuring economic mobility for our students. So that's the phase that we're now in. Building a Talent-Strong Texas builds upon the goals that we set for the state in 60 by 30 TX, but it adds an element of accountability, further accountability, to ensure that as institutions of higher education, keep in mind these are strategic plans that are not specific to community colleges, it's for all of higher education in Texas, but it adds an element to hold us accountable, to ensure that what we're doing in providing access and in providing the scaffolding for persistence and success, that it leads to economic mobility for our students. I think I heard Dr. Gaetan mention family-sustaining wages, for example, as an example of economic mobility. All right. Now, a lot of questions that I get, perhaps the most frequent, when I do presentations like this, whether a small group or a larger group like this one, is why? Why in 2023 did the legislature decide to make this change to our funding model for our community colleges? Let me add a footnote here. That decision in 2023 by the legislature was a unanimous decision. The final vote for House Bill 8 was 148 members who at the time were members of in the Texas House for HB 8, 0 against, 31 state senators for House Bill 8 and 0 against. And I think that's worth pointing out, particularly for those of us that work in the public policy arena, because how often do you see any legislation at the national level or even at the state level that is unanimously adopted, where all members, Democrat or Republican or independent, agree this is the right change, this is the right move for public policy, and that's what House Bill 8 represents. It was unanimously adopted by our legislature. But why? I think there are many different ways of answering the why question. The one that I usually focus upon is demographic change. And again, Dr. Gaetan mentioned demographic change, but more from a campus perspective. My demographic change is more global, or more statewide, let's put it that way. What you probably know, because I think Webb County, Laredo, has seen a lot of population growth in the past decade, if not longer. But what you may not know is that for the state of Texas, we have led the country over the past 10 years, if not a bit longer than that, in terms of sheer population growth. We have grown the most of any other state in the country over the last 10-year period in terms of population growth. So much so that in 2022, a couple of years ago, we surpassed 30 million people that live in the state of Texas. Only one other state in the country has more than 30 million people that reside there, and that's California. And there are about 38 million. We're now at about 31 million people that live here in the state of Texas. The second largest population in the country next to California, but the fastest growing population in the country, and that continues. We don't have to wait for a decennial census to tell us, because the Census Bureau tells us every year. They update population figures on a yearly basis. And since the decennial census was released in 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, each one of those subsequent years, we continue to lead the nation in terms of sheer population growth. Why does that matter then for House Bill 8? Well, one of the things that was compelling for our state legislature in 2023 was we have a strong economy. We are the 8th largest economy in the world. We have all of this momentum going for us. We're leading the country in gross domestic product growth. We're leading the country in job growth. We have a robust state economy that's working throughout the state, not just in one part of the state, but across the state. And yet we have this influx of population that is really changing local demographics in so many different ways. How do we ensure that we are in sync with the skills that are needed by our employers and the population that we have in place in the state today? What's the best way we can ensure that there is that coordination of employer needs, skill needs, with the educational opportunities being offered across the state of Texas? And the legislature decided the best way to do this, the most effective way to do this, is by changing the funding model of our community colleges, because we do the bulk of workforce education training across the state of Texas. In fact, over 90% of career and technical education training occurs across our 50 community college districts, over 90%. So what better way to ensure that there is this coordination of skill set needed with educational programs and training offered than to put some effort and some new funding into our community colleges? So, in addition to the legislature saying this, back in January of 2023, the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, the Dallas Fed, a very influential, if you don't check their website every now and then to take a look at some of the statistics, particularly higher education work that they do, you ought to do so. It's a great source of information, one that we use quite a bit at the coordinating board when I was there, certainly now at TAC with our association. At the start of the legislative session in 2023, the Dallas Fed commissioned a report. It's still available on their website. This is the cover page, All Eyes on Texas. And it was a report specific to 50 community college districts in Texas. What is the economic impact of our community colleges to the state of Texas? There's a lot of really positive data that came out of this report. I just talked to folks at the Dallas Fed in the past few weeks. They're actually thinking about updating this report because it's now a couple of years old. So we'll get some hopefully updated information in a performance-based funding model environment, because this was done before House Bill 8 was enacted. So now we have 2 years, almost 2 years of House Bill 8 being implemented. But one of the takeaways that you have on this slide is that the Dallas Fed in this report determined that over the next 10, 15 years, more than 4 million new jobs will be created here in the state of Texas. Now, many of those jobs will require education to a bachelor's degree, but many will not. In fact, probably most will not. Most will require what they call middle-tier workers. And middle-tier workers are described as needing more than a high school diploma, but not necessarily as much education as you get when you obtain a bachelor's degree. That is our sweet spot. I know that Laredo College, among about 12 or 13 other community colleges, does offer some bachelor degrees and perhaps a couple more here soon. But this middle tier skill set is the sweet spot of our community colleges across the state of Texas. This is affirmed by this Dallas Fed report. All right, taking a deeper look now into House Bill 8. Prior to the passage of House Bill 8, this is on average the funding, the three funding mechanisms, if you will, revenue streams for our community colleges. And this is how it averaged out on a statewide level. This is not specific to Laredo College. These numbers would be different for Laredo College, certainly back in 2021. But between 2010 and 2021, on average, 47% of revenue for our community colleges across Texas was obtained through local taxes, local property taxes. 30% on average was through the collection of tuition and fees from students, and 23%, and that number was, as you can tell, that trend line was going downward, was received for our community colleges through state appropriations. Again, this varies from college to college, But this was the statewide average when we walked into the legislature talking about trying to get HB 8 passed in 2023. This is what we were showing the legislature. 23% and that downward trend. And what I can tell you, I don't have a chart next that will show you what it looks like now, but what I can tell you is that that bottom line of state appropriations has shot upwards because of the funding that we've received now under House Bill 8. And we want to keep that momentum going, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit when I talk about our priorities for the coming legislative session. How do we get there? I think everybody knows by now there was a 12-member commission that was appointed by Governor Abbott back in 2022. There was 1 year of work, actually in 2021, I should say, a year of work between October 2021 and November of 2022 by a 12-member commission that was comprised of community college CEOs, a couple of trustees, some business leaders from around the state. All of these 12 folks held hearings across the state for a 1-year period and made recommendations to the legislature that resulted in House Bill 8 being passed in 2023. That's how we got to House Bill 8. All right, so then what is House Bill 8, the heart of House Bill 8? There's a lot actually that we could talk about in a deep dive of House Bill 8. This slide captures what I think is essentially the major components of this bill. First, we've already talked about this new financial aid program, financial aid for swift transfer. This is to allow students who under federal law are designated as educationally disadvantaged, which means that they are eligible for free lunch. That's a federal designation. Any student that falls into that classification, if a community college chooses to implement the new FAST program, which Laredo College was one of the, I think there was 30 colleges across Texas that implemented immediately, and I think, Dr. Medez, you all didn't delay. I believe you all implemented as soon as the program was available. So this, and now, by the way, 48 community colleges. So we started with 30 a year ago. Now we have 48 community colleges that have fully implemented the new FAST program, and the 2 that haven't have longstanding MOUs with their ISDs, and they're just waiting a little bit more time before they do implement. We expect all 50 community college districts to be implementing the new FAST program. So that is one aspect of House Bill 8. The other part of it was shared services, and so this is an initiative at the coordinating board, the state agency that oversees higher education here in Texas, to allow for some shared services to be implemented. For example, labor market information. If we want to obtain labor market information from private sector sources, which are expensive to obtain, Burning Glass, for example, as a source of private sector real-time labor market information, rather than Laredo College paying a private vendor directly at a high cost, what about if the coordinating board pools everybody's resources and signs a master services agreement so that we can, at a reduced price, have more than one college have access to that real-time labor market information. That is actually an initiative that's trying to get implemented by the coordinating board now because of the authority that was granted to the coordinating board under House Bill 8. So that's a little known provision, but I think an important provision that I put into this slide. The heart of House Bill 8 is the performance tier funding. The performance tier funding is pretty straightforward. The more we do with credentials of value, the more we do with credentials of value in high demand fields, the more we do with 15 semester credit hours for students who then transfer to a public university, and the more we do with 15 semester credit hours of dual credit instruction for students, that's the heart of the performance tier. There are weights assigned to that for economically disadvantaged students, academically disadvantaged students, and adult learners. That's the heart of House Bill 8, and I'm going to show you how the funding breaks out in just a second, but that's the performance tier. The base tier was adopted by the legislature because there are some community college districts in the state that struggle with raising enough revenue from local property taxes. I was, as Manitha said, I was born and raised in Alice, Texas. My hometown community college is Coastal Bend Community College. It was called B County College back then, but Coastal Bend Community College. They struggle, and I now live in downtown Austin. Austin Community College has no problems raising revenue through local property taxation or local property taxes. Coastal Bend Community College has a problem with that. That's the difference. And the base tier provides money for, at last count, about 23 community college districts that need a little bit of help because they can't raise revenue the way Austin Community College can through local property tax generation. So that is what the base tier is all about. And then, of course, the last thing I have on this slide, we created a new advisory committee specific to our sector that works with the coordinating board in implementing all aspects of House Bill 8. All right, here's the increase in funding. This shows the state investment, so this is state appropriations over about a 15-year period, perhaps, or maybe a 20-year period. And you'll see that for the biennium that we're currently in, which is FY 24-25, because of House Bill 8, adopted in 2023, there was a 23.3% increase in state appropriations for our community colleges by the legislature. We want to keep that momentum going. That graph needs to continue to move upwards to fund the various programs that we're now implementing as a result of House Bill 8. Overall, this is a snapshot of what the state legislature provided for funding for our community colleges. On the left here, $2.2 billion in formula funding. We were just under $1.9 billion in formula funding for the previous biennium. Because of House Bill 8, that formula funding appropriation from the legislature moved up to just over $2.2 billion. That's the 23.3% increase that was reflected in the previous slide. And again, we want to keep that momentum going. There was an additional $133.5 million. So this is where HB8 deals with affordability, by the way, not just with the FAST program, but the legislature decided to increase funding for TEOG, and I think everybody's familiar with TEOG. It is the need-based financial aid program for the state of Texas. It's our Pell equivalent for the state of Texas for students that qualify through their FAFSA for financial need. We increased funding for this program incredibly, significantly from where it was previously, and that's something that we thank the legislature for. And then, of course, the FAST program, the financial aid program for dual credit students, totaled about $80 million total from the legislature to implement that program. That, too, is one of our priorities to ensure that we continue with that funding stream to continue the FAST program as we move into the next legislative session. The funding model, the legacy funding model that was in place prior to HB8, it was contact hours, was primarily about 80% of the funding is what was allocated through contact hours. Core operations was $1 million for all 50 community college districts that had been implemented several years before. And then student success points or momentum points, as Dr. Gaitan was talking about earlier, was a part of the funding as well. But again, there wasn't a lot of funding that was tied to those particular momentum points or student success points. All right, prior to House Bill 8, this is how the funding broke out: 82% through contact hours. Student success points were 12%. Core operations were 4%, and then another 2% or so through exceptional item requests and other sources of funding. But again, primarily it was contact hour funding, which equated to enrollment, and that changed dramatically with House Bill 8. Now 95% of funding from the legislature, so that $2.2 billion in formula funding is allocated 95% through performance tier funding and 5% through base tier funding. So whatever the legislature allocates for performance tier funding or for formula funding, 5% of that is reserved for base tier for those colleges that need a little bit of help because they can't generate enough funding for core operations through property tax valuations. Okay, this slide, a little hard to read, but this is an important slide. All of this is from the coordinating board, by the way. This slide is available on the coordinating board website. We're taking stuff that is from public sources. And this slide shows you the value that currently is assigned to each of the performance indicators under House Bill 8. All right, so what you'll see up here is a student that completes 15 semester credit hours of dual credit at a community college is funded at $3,500. Now, that goes through an assignment for weights. So the rate for that particular performance is $3,500. But there is a formula. It says at the bottom, the financial value equals final weighted count times the performance outcome rate. The weighted count is there is weights assigned to students who are financially disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged, academically disadvantaged, and adult learners. So that $3,500 is actually multiplied for students who fall into those categories. You get more funding for students who complete their 15 semester credit hours of dual credit, but are also in a category of being economically disadvantaged, academically disadvantaged, or an adult learner. That then equals your final performance rate. And so, again, I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but this is the slide that tells you, and again, this is on the Corning Board website, so if you have questions about, well, how much do we get for students that complete 15 semester credit hours and then transfer to a general academic institution, to one of our public universities, that's up here as well. What do we get for students that complete a short-term upskilling, reskilling credential that qualifies for funding? What would that funding be? That's up here on this slide as well. All of this is reflected on this slide, all right? So, for Laredo College specifically, we just have a couple of slides here that shows your performance tier funding for FY25 at a little over $22 million for FY25. And you'll see here, it's hard to see the slides here, but you'll see that the categories where you're getting the most funding for is the 15 semester credit hours of dual credit, the transfer, so students who complete 15 semester credit hours of transfer and then transfer to 15 semester credit hours at Laredo College and then transfer to a general academic institution, and then associate degree, conferring of associate degrees. That is the bulk of what comprises the $22 million in performance tier funding that has been given to Laredo College for FY25. And then we had a graph here that just shows your state allocation, your revenue from state appropriations over the last 3 fiscal years, and it shows you all moving up, particularly in FY24 and FY25, which are the 2 years that reflect House Bill 8 funding, the new funding model. Again, I started this by saying you all represent, I think, one of the leaders of our 50 community college districts due to your hard work, staff, faculty, leadership. That is remarkable because as I go give presentations like this, I don't always have the benefit of having this chart going in the right direction. Sometimes I have to go to a college where it's going in a different direction, and we have to talk about what does that mean for your college, and can we continue to support House Bill 8? And the answer is a resounding yes. It's just that some of our colleges need to do a little bit more, including strategic planning, looking at their business model to better respond to the new requirements of House Bill 8. All right, I'm about to wrap this up here pretty quickly. Our dual credit program, we took this slide from the Corning Board because their staff had been using it. We thought this was informative. Under the new FAST program, in the less than 2 years that it's been implemented across the state, 1.46 million semester credit hours of dual credit have been provided at no cost to students because of FAST. 260,000 students across the state with financial need have been served by this program, meaning that they've been able to take that 15 semester credit hours of dual credit, and $80 million or so, close to $80 million has been allocated for this new financial aid program. Truly remarkable when you think about House Bill 8 gets written up in the media about a change to performance funding, outcomes-based funding. We're not the only state that's done that, by the way. There's a handful of states across the country, Ohio and Tennessee in particular come to mind, that have had outcomes-based funding model for their colleges. In Ohio, it's for their community colleges for a decade. The difference there from what we're doing here, the reason we stand apart and the reason I get phone calls just about every day, and in fact, I got an email from my counterpart in California for their community college association just as I was sitting here this morning. The reason everybody wants to know about HB 8 is because we are different. How are we different? Well, in Ohio, they've had outcomes-based funding for a decade, but it's not a dynamic model. So the legislature still says, okay, at the start of their session, here's X amount of money. Let's say here's $2 billion. Ohio community colleges, go divide that up by the performance, by the performance tiers, the funding mechanism, by transfer, by dual credit, et cetera. But there's nothing dynamic about that. So some colleges may be doing a lot better, like Laredo College, but they'll get no reward in Ohio because there's no dynamic aspect to their funding model. They're not getting paid on a real-time basis for their outcomes. What we insisted upon for House Bill 8 is a dynamic model. We need to be able to show the legislature, here are the outcomes that we are producing on a real-time basis, And we'd like for the legislature to step up and fund us on a real-time basis, particularly those that are doing well, and certainly Laredo College stands out as one of those. That's what separates us. The legislature agreed to that model. It's not baked in, by the way. We're not an entitlement program. So every 2 years, we've got to go back to the legislature and remind them, this is why it's working, this is why we're different than any other outcomes-based model in the country. But it's worked, and it is working, and it's one that has the full support of all 50 of our community college districts across the state. So we have work to do every 2 years. And I will end with just a couple of slides on what we have coming up beginning next week. Here's just a quick breakup of, or a snapshot of the legislature. 150 members in the House. The circles in pink in the middle there represent newly elected Republican members, and then in light blue, newly elected Democratic members of the legislature. Our job is to go back and ensure that we remind our legislature, and I know you all do a great job here in Webb County with your legislative delegation, but to remind the legislature all of the good things that are happening because of House Bill 8. We have a lot of work to do, particularly with the new members, both Republican and Democrat, that are now about to take office officially when they get sworn in next Tuesday for the first day of the legislative session. On the Senate side, you see the breakdown there. I think there's been a couple of new Republican members in the 31-member Senate, but again, we are very fortunate that we have broad support across the political parties, Democrat and Republican. But we also have very strong support from state leadership, from Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, certainly Governor Greg Abbott, who's been a steadfast leader and supporter of House Bill 8. Current speaker is Dave Phelan. There's going to be a new speaker. We'll know who it is next Tuesday. It's hard for me to predict who it's going to be at this point. But whoever it's going to be, I know will be a strong supporter of what we're doing at our community colleges across the state of Texas. And then finally, what are we focusing on for this coming legislative session for our sector? Most importantly is to keep the momentum going for House Bill 8, as I've talked about previously. Specifically, what we know now from the coordinating board, from data from the coordinating board, is that we have outperformed our funding for the current biennium. Across the state of Texas, community colleges have produced more outcomes under House Bill 8 than we have money to pay for. Therefore, our first priority for the legislative session is to seek funding in the supplemental appropriations bill. There's two appropriations bills that take place every legislative session. One is supplemental to pay for bills that are occurring in the current biennium, and the other one is the General Appropriations Act, which pays for bills in the next 2-year period. We need funding first and foremost from the supplemental appropriations bill, because we're short right now about $40 million in being able to pay for outcomes that have occurred this biennium. So we're asking the legislature for funding under the supplemental. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal because normally community colleges are not included in supplemental appropriations bills. Supplemental appropriations bills are meant to pay for particularly healthcare cost overruns, like Medicaid cost overruns. Or if there was a hurricane that occurred the year before, then the legislature has to appropriate additional money for that part of the state. That's normally what happens in a supplemental. We don't normally go to the legislature to say, you know what, you all tasked us with performance-based funding and we overperformed. And therefore we need some additional money for this biennium. That's the request that we're making. It's a big deal. We feel confident that we're going to be met with success in making this request, but it is our top priority at this point. Second and related, and just as important, is funding for the coming biennium. We need to ensure that we keep that $2.2 billion in formula funding going. So we're going to support whatever the coordinating board says is needed as they anticipate what is the additional funding that we're going to need for our community colleges for the coming 2-year period. We don't know that number yet. It's probably going to be about a 4.5% to 5% increase above our current formula funding level. So we'll still be at around the $2.3 billion formula funding request, but whatever the coordinating board says is what we're going to support as a sector. The final thing here, and this is my final slide, is we want to include private and independent colleges in the transfer funding mechanism. Right now, a student completes 15 semester credit hours at Laredo College, transfers to A&M Pan American, it's not Pan American anymore, is it? UTRGV. To UTRGV, that's fundable. You get the $3,500 plus the weights assigned to it if they are economically disadvantaged, et cetera. Well, if a student transfers, I don't know, to St. Mary's University in San Antonio from Laredo College, there is no funding mechanism for that because that is a private independent institution. We didn't include that in the transfer for HB8. We'd like to change that so that when a student transfers to a private independent, not a for-profit, but a private independent college like St. Mary's or Our Lady of the Lake, Trinity University, for example, all of those are examples of the colleges we'd like to get added to that transfer mechanism. That is one of our priorities as well. All right, so with that, Dr. Ramirez, I've done my overview. It looks like a quiet crowd, but I also see a lot of heads nodding, sometimes in accordance with what I'm saying, sometimes like maybe not so much, but that's okay, right? I don't know if anybody wants to jump in with any questions or comments, and I may be blowing up your agenda by even offering that, Dr. Ramirez, but if anybody has any questions or comments, this is your opportunity. I'm sure I'll be back at some point, but if anybody wants to jump in, I'm more than happy to address any comments or questions. Please, yes, sir, yes.
Congratulations to the president and all of us. Looks like the funding from the state doubled in 2 years. That's right. Congratulations.
Thank you. Is it Dr. Lee? Is that? Yes. For those of you who didn't hear it, the point was that funding from state appropriations for Laredo College has doubled over the past couple of years. That's a great way for me to end my comments because what I started with was to give you all, so much credit. And to amplify the important and hard work you all are doing here at Laredo College. It's a point of pride. It should be for each one of you that the legislature is recognizing your hard work, and we're going to continue to advocate that they will continue to do so over the next couple of years as well. Thank you all for inviting me here today. Appreciate it.
Why is this information important? Because I think it adds value to the work that you all are doing. Understanding how we're going to get funded, how this is going to translate into your the work that you're doing in your classrooms, in your offices, in your departments, all of this matters, and it all comes together. And the more you understand the way the state thinks of us and what the state is expecting us to do, the better you can communicate with your students and with your colleagues. And so we wanted to give you that general overview. This next spring semester, we'll be working in Austin greatly. Out of that supplemental funding that's pending, we're owed $700,000. That's huge. That's half of our new programs, or our new workforce programs. It's 1.7 million that we're going after. That $700,000 could get us one step closer to starting that plumbing program or that power line program. There's so many needs and there's so many opportunities for us here in this community. And these funding opportunities are what are going to make them happen. We don't want to tax our taxpayers anymore. And we are limited to our tax-paying district. We don't want to add tuition to our students. Actually, we can't, because the governor told us we couldn't raise tuition for the next 2 years. So, and luckily we haven't had to. We've also had some amazing contributing donors that have supported us along the way. But it is the work that's happening in your classrooms. It's the work that's happening in your departments that keeps bringing students back, that keeps bringing our community members in, and that keeps supporting the growth and development, not just of Laredo College, but of our entire community. You are, as I said, you are the heart of what's happening. Don't lose sight of that. Please don't lose sight of that. It is important. The future of our community is in your hands, and I trust you. Thank you for what you do. And thank you, Dr. Martinez. Thank you, Dr. Gaitan. I really appreciate you all being here. Thank you.